nice to have you here on this technology integration series. My name is Blaze Ella, and in this unit, we will be looking at the blended learning teaching strategy. Teaching and learning experiences fall between a continuum that has two ends. On one end is the brick-and-mortar classroom, which is the traditional face-to-face classroom, and on the other end is the online classroom. Now, blended learning falls between these two ends. Blended learning is a teaching method or strategy that combines both online and face-to-face learning modes. It therefore means that the teacher needs to provide activities for both face-to-face and online modes. To properly blend, the teacher needs to consider the different components of instruction. Some of these components include the objectives, assessments, instructional activities, or learning experiences. When you consider all these, you can now decide what aspects need to be handled in face-to-face mode and what aspects can be handled in the online mode. There are different models of blended learning, and several bodies and individuals have come up with several different models. But let's look at a model developed by the Clayton Christensen Institute. This model has 4 broad categories and some sub-categories. The 4 broad categories are the rotation model, the flex model, the a la carte model, and the enriched virtual model. And under the rotation model, we have these sub-models: the station rotation model, the lab rotation model, the individual rotation model, and the flipped classroom model. So let's take a look at each of these models and how they are operated. We will begin with the rotation model, which has 4 subcategories. The first on our list is the station rotation model. In the station rotation model, different stations are set up in a class or a learning space. They are both online stations and face-to-face stations. And all students are required to move through the different stations at fixed schedules. This diagram depicts the station rotation model. In the lab rotation model, the computer laboratory is situated away from the classroom, and so students are made to go through the classroom and the computer laboratory at fixed schedules. This diagram depicts the lab rotation model. Next, we have the individual rotation model. Just as we have in the station rotation model, different stations are set up. But in the individual rotation model, the different individuals go through the different stations at individual schedules based on individual needs. And this diagram depicts the individual rotation model. And the final model under the rotation model is the flipped classroom model. What happens in the flipped classroom model? In the flipped classroom model, what happens in the traditional classroom environment is flipped. In the traditional classroom environment, students listen to lectures and take notes in class while they do their assignments at home. However, this process is flipped in the flipped classroom. So what happens in the flipped classroom is that videos are given to students to watch at home, or the links to the videos are given to students to watch at home, and then when they come to the class, they solve authentic problems with their peers and teachers. This image depicts what happens in the flipped classroom compared to what happens in the traditional classroom. At this point, we are done with the rotation model. So when you look at the model, you can see that we're moving towards the online end of the continuum. So from rotation, we move over to the flex model. So we're moving closer to the online end. In the flex model, online learning is the backbone. Flex model requires very large learning space that has so many stations set up, and students go through these stations fluidly based on their needs, and teachers are there to provide flexible support based on the needs of the students. Moving on, let's look at the a la carte model. The a la carte model is also known as the self-blend model. In this model, students take online courses to supplement the courses they take in the face-to-face learning environments. Some schools that use this model have their audited courses as online versions so that students can take them to supplement their core courses. This image depicts the a la carte model. And finally, we have the enriched virtual model, which is the closest to the online end on the continuum. The enriched virtual model is almost fully online. This is because the bulk of the coursework is done online, and face-to-face sessions are used to supplement the online sessions. And since face-to-face sessions are held once in a while, daily class attendance is not required. This image depicts the enriched virtual model. Here are a few things to reflect on. When you consider the peculiarities of your environment, which of these models are adoptable? Better still, create your own blended learning model that works for your environment and students. And when you do, please document the steps taken and share so it can be replicated by other teachers.